I don't like to talk bad about other projects, so I'll try to just describe it as very objectively. But before getting to Stacks, I think there's something important for us to understand. Uh, the crypto ecosystem is always looking for the new narrative to create hype around it, and you've seen the discussions, all the VCs that have vested interest just funding early startups and reselling afterwards and just creating a business out of everything. So it was the ICOs, then it was Web3, like every NFTs, where like there's a big long list of investors to get trashed and lose all their fundings, and especially when you are making these technologies very easy for unaware investors or early participants in the space that do not know the difference between Bitcoin and an altcoin, and they just fall and end up buying NFTs instead of protecting themselves from the collapse of the US dollar, right? So this is the crypto ecosystem we live in. And I wouldn't be surprised if built on Bitcoin becomes the next fancy narrative used to scam newcomers to the space. So that's why what you were mentioning about the confusing marketing narrative is very important, because you could have hundreds of scammers claiming that they are building on Bitcoin, and we need to protect that by being very, very clear on how our projects benefit Bitcoin. No, and the fact that you, as a very savvy person in the space, still do not understand how Stacks works is, I think, is their fault, and kind of they were doing it on purpose. So that's where we should be very clear. For instance, when we developed RSK, we just crashed our brains on how we could be super aligned with the Bitcoin community. We decided to expand functionality for the Bitcoiners. So 80% of the fees in the platform go to the Bitcoin miners. So the remaining 20% goes to the development of the platform. 100% of the Bitcoin native currency is in Bitcoin. So we decided to build our Rootstock as a sidechain. So the native currency of Rootstock is Bitcoin, right? And that actually made the project very difficult to fund, because it's much easier to create a native token and speculate on that and just use it for crowdfunding. So when you're building a Bitcoin sidechain, you need to fund your project in traditional ways, which is much more difficult and ends up having a much smaller budget for marketing and development and so on. So building a Bitcoin sidechain is very difficult. And it's also why I think it should be appreciated and respected, because it's a very crucial decision when you're starting a project. And that's why there are so little sidechains, Bitcoin sidechains, because the temptation of creating a native token that is speculative on which you can fundraise, it's extremely high. So it's super easy to explain how Rootstock adds value to Bitcoiners, because it uses Bitcoin as native currency and because it adds fees to the Bitcoin miners. It is very easy to explain how Liquid adds value to Bitcoin, because they also use Bitcoin as native currency. They do not use Bitcoin for the consensus, so the consensus is federated. They don't give value to Bitcoin miners, but they benefit every single Bitcoin holder because their native currency is Bitcoin. So they are also a Bitcoin sidechain. Now, in the case of Stacks, they have their own native currency. So they decided to fundraise, and somehow their native currency competes with Bitcoin in terms of store of value. So I think they have some kind of anchoring. So every block, there are a couple of transactions that come from the Stacks blockchain. So it probably adds a few cents per block. And it is clear to me that it's more what you're taking from Bitcoin than what you're giving back to Bitcoin in terms of value. But that's okay. I don't have anything against that. You can design your open source protocol as you want. Now, when you're marketing your project as built on Bitcoin, why are you doing so? Are you looking for Bitcoiners to join your platform, to use your technology? Are you willing Bitcoiners to put their Bitcoins into your platform? And once they are inside, they say, yeah, but you use it, you need to buy my token, right? So I think it's more the confusing marketing what upsets many Bitcoiners, because they could just say, we're stocks, this is how we work. If you like it, use it. But the permanent Bitcoin narrative that is not backed by the actual technology and the economic incentives on how the platform was built and fundraised is what I think many people find a bit upsetting. On the other hand, they made a claim to help and donate to Bitcoin Core developers, which is something that I think is great. And that could be done by any other project and any other blockchain, and should be done by everyone. But that doesn't mean that Stack is built on Bitcoin. So built on Bitcoin will be used for scammers. And it's the ones that really care about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin community, especially those who are not aware of these technologies and cannot assess properly. We are the ones that need to protect the narrative. We are the ones that should be, putting light on these projects that are claiming to be built on Bitcoin. I said, what do you mean? Explain it clearly and properly, because Bitcoiners need to know whether by using your platform they are benefiting the Bitcoin ecosystem as a whole, or you're just, feeding on the immutability of Bitcoin, but really not adding much value back.